The sun beat down mercilessly on St. Peter's Square as Tyler, the Demolisher, Martinez, strutted toward the Vatican entrance, his massive frame casting an imposing shadow across the ancient cobblestones. Behind him, a small crew filmed his every move while tourists whispered and pointed at the famous professional wrestler. His signature smirk played across his face as the Swiss guards stood at attention, their traditional blue, red, and orange uniforms a stark contrast to his tight black t-shirt emblazoned with his wrestling logo. "Let's see how tough these guys really are," Tyler announced to the camera, flexing his tattooed biceps. "I heard these Swiss guards are supposed to be elite, but I bet they've never faced anyone like the Demolisher." Before anyone could stop him, Tyler reached out and shoved the nearest guard's shoulder. In a blur of movement too fast for the camera to catch, the guard's halberd swept Tyler's legs from under him. The wrestler crashed to the ground with a thud that echoed across the square, his shocked expression frozen as he stared up at the Vatican sky. Before we continue, if you enjoy stories about unexpected confrontations and humbling moments, make sure to click that subscribe button. This is the best way for you to support our work. Thank you very much, and let's continue. 3 months earlier, Tyler, the Demolisher Martinez, sat in the plush office of his agent, Jerry Weinstein, as they discussed ways to boost his flagging career. Once the darling of the wrestling world, Tyler had suffered a series of losses that had relegated him to mid-card status. His social media numbers were dropping, and sponsors were beginning to look elsewhere. At 35, Tyler knew he had maybe 5 good years left in the ring, and he needed something spectacular to revitalize his brand. "What about a world tour?" Jerry suggested, tapping his pen against a notepad. "You know, taking on local fighting champions in different countries. We film it, make it a series." Tyler nodded, but his expression remained unconvinced. "Been done before. Everyone does those. International challenges now. I need something bigger, something no one would expect." "Well, what about something completely different? Something shocking?" Jerry's eyes lit up. "You know, the new pope was just elected last week. Pope Leo XIV, first American pope. He's all over the news." Tyler raised an eyebrow. "What does the pope have to do with wrestling?" "Nothing, that's the point. But the Vatican has those guards, right? The Swiss guards. They're supposed to be these elite soldiers with centuries of tradition. What if?" Jerry's voice lowered dramatically. "What if you challenged them?" Tyler's laugh boomed through the office. "Challenge the Pope's guards? Are you serious?" "Deadly serious. Think about it. You, the ultimate modern warrior, against these guys in their funny Renaissance costumes. It would be a culture clash made for viral content." As absurd as it sounded, Tyler found himself intrigued. His career had been built on outrageous stunts and controversy. This could be exactly what he needed. But would they even accept a challenge? It's the Vatican, for God's sake. Jerry waved his hand dismissively. "Of course they won't officially accept. But you go there, film yourself calling them out, maybe push the boundaries a little. They'll react, they have to. And boom, viral content, international headlines, wrestler disrespects Pope's guards. Your name will be everywhere." Tyler leaned back in his chair, contemplating. "It's crazy, but it might just work." "Trust me," Jerry said with a calculating smile. "This is exactly what your brand needs. People won't be able to look away." What began as a publicity stunt quickly evolved into an obsession for Tyler. He spent weeks researching the Swiss guards, watching documentaries about their training and history. The more he learned, the more convinced he became that their reputation was exaggerated. Sure, they went through basic military training in Switzerland before coming to the Vatican, but how could they possibly compare to his years of athletic competition and physical conditioning? In his Miami mansion, Tyler increased his training regimen, adding specific exercises he thought would prepare him for any confrontation. He practiced quick takedowns and evasive maneuvers, convinced that the guards' traditional weapons training would be no match for modern fighting techniques. "These guys are just glorified ceremonial guards," he told his personal trainer as he bench-pressed 300 pounds. "They look impressive in those uniforms, but when's the last time they actually had to defend anything? The 1500s? His trainer, a former MMA fighter, looked skeptical. "I don't know, man. Military is military. Those European Special Forces units are no joke, and the Swiss guards are supposedly selected from the best." Tyler scoffed. "They're carrying halberds and swords, Marco. Literal Renaissance weapons. I'm not exactly worried." But as the trip approached, doubts began to creep in. Tyler found himself watching videos of the guards' precision drills with growing respect. Their movements were disciplined and synchronized, revealing years of intensive training. One night, unable to sleep, he discovered that modern Swiss guards were not just ceremonial figures. They were required to be expert marksmen and trained in unarmed combat as well as traditional weapons. The morning of his flight to Rome, Tyler almost called Jerry to cancel the whole thing. A small voice of reason whispered that he was making a terrible mistake. But then he checked his social media and saw the excitement building among his fans. The hashtag Demolisher Vises Vatican was trending, and the promotional videos his team had released were generating more engagement than he'd seen in years. There was no turning back now. Upon arriving in Rome, Tyler and his small crew spent 2 days scouting the Vatican and observing the Swiss guards from a distance. He noticed how they stood at attention for hours without fidgeting, their eyes constantly scanning the crowds. Occasionally, he caught one of them watching him with a knowing gaze that suggested they were well aware of who he was and why he might be there. "I think they recognize me," Tyler murmured to Jerry as they sat at a cafe near St. Peter's Square. Jerry grinned. "Perfect. That means they're already on edge. Tomorrow, we make history." That night, Tyler barely slept. His hotel room felt stuffy despite the air conditioning, and his mind raced with scenarios of how the confrontation might play out. By morning, dark circles had formed under his eyes, but adrenaline coursed through his veins as he donned his most intimidating outfit, all black, with his wrestling logo prominently displayed. As they approached the Vatican entrance, Tyler's confidence surged. This was his element, performing for the camera, creating moments that would be replayed millions of times online. He began his rehearsed speech, loudly proclaiming his challenge to the stoic guards who stood immobile at their posts. "I've come to challenge the so-called elite Swiss guards. I want to see if your ancient training can stand up to a real athlete of the 21st century." Tourists gathered, phones raised to capture the spectacle. The Swiss guards remained expressionless, their discipline impeccable. Frustrated by their lack of reaction, Tyler made a fateful decision. He reached out and shoved the nearest guard's shoulder, not hard enough to hurt him, just enough to provoke a response. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. The guard, a young man named Gabriel Fischer, who had completed his Swiss military service with honors before joining the Pontifical Swiss Guard 3 years ago, reacted with lightning speed. His halberd, which Tyler had dismissed as ceremonial, swept in a controlled arc that took the wrestler's legs cleanly out from under him. As Tyler hit the ground, the breath knocked from his lungs, Gabriel moved with practiced efficiency. In seconds, the wrestler found himself immobilized, the guard's knee precisely positioned to control without causing injury, a technique perfected through centuries of close protection training. "Sir," Gabriel said quietly, his English accented, but clear, "you have assaulted a member of the Pontifical Swiss Guard on duty. This is a serious offense." 2 other guards materialized instantly, forming a protective perimeter as Vatican police approached. Jerry, panicking at how quickly the situation had escalated, began shouting about diplomatic incidents and lawsuits, but fell silent when one of the officers calmly informed him that they had jurisdiction to arrest both men for their actions. Tyler, his face burning with humiliation, was helped to his feet and escorted to a small, austere room within the Vatican security offices. His camera crew was detained separately, their equipment confiscated. For hours, he sat alone, the gravity of his miscalculation sinking in with each passing minute. This wasn't going to be the viral triumph he had envisioned. It was a disaster. When the door finally opened, Tyler expected to see a stern Vatican official or perhaps an Italian police officer. Instead, a man in simple black clothing with a white clerical collar entered. He was older, with silver-streaked dark hair and intelligent eyes that seemed to look straight through Tyler's bravado. "Mr. Martinez," the man said, taking a seat, you across from him. "I'm Cardinal Rossi. I understand you wanted to test our Swiss guards today?" Tyler swallowed hard. "It was just for social media, you know? Nothing personal, just entertainment." The Cardinal nodded thoughtfully. "I see. And was it entertaining when you assaulted a young man who was simply doing his duty?" Put that way, Tyler felt a wave of shame wash over him. "I didn't really assault him. It was just a push, for show." "A show." Cardinal Rossi's voice remained gentle, but his eyes hardened slightly. "Mr. Martinez, the men and women who protect Vatican City and the Holy Father take their responsibilities very seriously. They train rigorously, not to show off or entertain, but to serve and protect if necessary." Tyler shifted uncomfortably. "Look, I made a mistake. Can we just forget about it? I've learned my lesson." "Have you? What lesson would that be?" The question hung in the air, forcing Tyler to actually consider what had happened. That I shouldn't underestimate people based on appearances, I guess, and that some traditions exist for a reason. Cardinal Rossi smiled slightly. "That's a start. But perhaps there's a deeper lesson here about respect. For others, for institutions different from your own, for boundaries." Tyler nodded, genuinely chastened. "So, what happens now? Am I going to jail or something?" "That would depend on the wishes of the guard you pushed, but I don't believe that will be necessary. Young Gabriel is not interested in pressing charges." The Cardinal paused. "However, there is the matter of making amends." "Amends? Like a fine? I can pay whatever?" Cardinal Rossi held up his hand. "Not everything can be resolved with money, Mr. Martinez. No, I had something else in mind. Pope Leo XIV is very concerned with youth outreach, particularly in disadvantaged communities. He believes strongly in the power of physical discipline and sport to transform lives." Tyler frowned, unsure where this was heading. "We have a program for at-risk youth here in Rome, and similar initiatives in the United States. Young people who need positive role models, who need to learn that strength without discipline and respect is meaningless." Understanding dawned on Tyler's face. "You want me to work with kids? Teach wrestling or something?" "Precisely. A 6-month commitment, working with our programs whenever your schedule permits. No cameras, no publicity stunts, just honest service." Tyler's initial instinct was to refuse, to find some way to wriggle out of the situation with his lawyers, but something about the Cardinal's steady gaze made him reconsider. Maybe there was something more valuable than viral fame to be found in this debacle. "And if I do this, we're square. No charges, no bad publicity." Cardinal Rossi's expression became enigmatic. "The incident will be forgotten officially, yes. As for publicity, well, that depends on what story you choose to tell about today's events, doesn't it?" 2 days later, Tyler sat in his hotel room, staring at his phone. His social media was exploding, but not in the way he had planned. Someone, a tourist presumably, had captured his humiliating takedown on video, and it had spread across the internet with devastating speed. The comments were brutal, mocking his arrogance and celebrating his comeuppance. Jerry was beside, himself alternating between rage and despair. "This is a PR nightmare. We need to spin this, release a statement saying you were attacked unprovoked. Something." Tyler watched the video again, seeing himself through strangers' eyes. The preening arrogance, the disrespect, the swift and efficient response from the guard. It was all there in high definition. To his surprise, he found himself laughing. "What's so funny?" Jerry demanded. "Your career is tanking before our eyes." "Maybe it needed to tank," Tyler said, setting down his phone. "Maybe the demolisher needed to get demolished for once." He looked up at his agent. "I'm going to keep my word to the Cardinal. I'm going to work with those kids." Jerry stared at him in disbelief. "Are you serious? What about your comeback? What about your brand?" "My brand can change," Tyler said with growing conviction. Maybe it's time it did. The following week, Pope Leo XIV was scheduled to visit a youth center in Rome's working-class Trastevere neighborhood. The papal visit had been planned months in advance, but it took on new significance when Tyler arrived an hour before the Pope, dressed casually and ready to work. The center's director, Sister Maria, regarded him skeptically at first. "Cardinal Rossi told me to expect you. He said you had a transformative experience at the Vatican." Tyler rubbed his neck sheepishly. "You could say that. Look, I'm just here to help, however I can. No cameras, no stunts." Sister Maria's expression softened slightly. "The children have been practicing wrestling moves since they heard you were coming. Perhaps you could start there." For the next hour, Tyler worked with a group of teenagers, teaching them basic wrestling stances and holds, emphasizing safety and respect for opponents. To his surprise, he found himself enjoying the simple pleasure of sharing his skills without the pressure of performance or spectacle. When Pope Leo XIV arrived, the center erupted in excitement. The Pope, a tall man with a gentle demeanor that belied his imposing presence, greeted each child individually, speaking in both Italian and Spanish to accommodate the diverse group. When he reached Tyler, there was a moment of curious recognition. "Ah, Mr. Martinez," the Pope said with a hint of amusement in his American-accented English. "I've heard about your encounter with our Swiss guards." Tyler felt his face flush. "Not my finest moment, Your Holiness." Pope Leo studied him thoughtfully. "Humility often follows humiliation, but only for those wise enough to learn from it. It seems you may be among the wise." The Pope moved on, but his words lingered with Tyler throughout the day, as he watched Leo XIV interact with the children, listening attentively to their stories, joining in their games despite his age, showing genuine interest in their lives. Tyler began to understand something about true strength and leadership that had eluded him in his career of manufactured conflicts and choreographed victories. Later, as the papal visit was concluding, Tyler found himself face to face with a familiar figure, Gabriel Fischer, the Swiss guard who had taken him down so efficiently. Out of his formal uniform and dressed in a simple dark suit, Gabriel was part of the Pope's security detail for the visit. "Mr. Martinez," Gabriel acknowledged him with a polite nod. "Just Tyler, please." He extended his hand. "I owe you an apology. What I did was disrespectful and stupid." Gabriel hesitated, then shook his hand. "Apology accepted. Though I must thank you. My colleagues haven't stopped talking about it. It's not every day we get to use our training so dramatically." Tyler laughed ruefully. "Glad I could provide some entertainment. You moved so fast I didn't even see it coming." 5 years in Swiss Special Forces before joining the Guard, Gabriel explained. "We may carry traditional weapons, but our training is thoroughly modern." "I definitely underestimated that part," Tyler admitted. "Listen, I was wondering if you might be willing to show me some of those techniques sometime. Professionally speaking, I could incorporate some of that into my wrestling style." Gabriel considered this, then nodded. "I'm off duty next Tuesday. There's a training facility near the Vatican where some of us practice. You'd be welcome to join." As they exchanged contact information, Tyler realized that his impulsive challenge had opened doors he never expected, not to fame or viral success, but to something potentially more valuable: genuine connections and new perspectives. Over the following months, Tyler kept his promise to Cardinal Rossi, working with youth programs in Rome and later in Chicago, Pope Leo XIV's hometown, where the Pope's initiative had particular resonance with local communities. Tyler's wrestling persona began to evolve, less focused on destruction and more on discipline and technique. He incorporated some of the movements he learned from Gabriel and other Swiss guards into his ring work, creating a unique style that caught the attention of wrestling promoters and fans alike. His most popular move, which he named the Vatican Sweep, was a modified version of the takedown Gabriel had used on him that fateful day in St. Peter's Square. Whenever he performed it, Tyler would acknowledge its origins, using his platform to talk about his experience and the lessons he had learned about respect and humility. 6 months after the incident, Tyler received an unexpected invitation: a private audience with Pope Leo XIII during the pontiff's visit to the United States. The meeting was brief but meaningful, with the Pope expressing appreciation for Tyler's work with young people and his willingness to transform a moment of conflict into an opportunity for growth. "The strongest people I have known," Pope Leo told him, "are those who find the courage to change, to admit their mistakes, to become more than they were. It is not an easy path." "No," Tyler agreed, "but I'm finding it's worth it." As he left the meeting, Tyler passed several Swiss guards, in their formal uniforms standing at attention outside the papal chambers. He nodded to them with newfound respect, and they returned the gesture, a silent acknowledgement between professionals who had found unexpected common ground. Later that evening, Tyler posted a single photo to his social media, himself standing beside Gabriel Fisher, both men smiling, with the simple caption, "From adversaries to allies. Sometimes your greatest opponent becomes your best teacher." The post received more engagement than any of his previous stunts, sparking conversations about sportsmanship, respect across cultural divides, and the power of second chances. Wrestling fans who had followed the saga from the beginning expressed admiration for his growth, and young people from the programs he worked with shared how his example had inspired them to approach challenges differently. 1 year to the day after his humiliating takedown, Tyler returned to St. Peter's Square, not as a challenger, but as a guest. He had been invited to participate in a demonstration of martial arts and traditional combat techniques organized as part of a cultural exchange program sponsored by the Vatican. Students from his youth programs, both in Rome and Chicago, performed alongside members of the Swiss Guard, showcasing how different fighting traditions could coexist and learn from each other. Standing in the same spot where he had once been, brought low by his own arrogance, Tyler watched as Gabriel led a group of children through a series of movements that blended Swiss fighting techniques with elements of wrestling. The sun glinted off the cobblestones just as it had that day, but everything else had changed, especially Tyler himself. "Quite a difference from your last visit," came a voice beside him. Cardinal Rossi had joined him, watching the demonstrations, with evident satisfaction. Tyler smiled. "The location's the same, but the man is different." Indeed, the Cardinal gestured to the children learning from Gabriel. "And these young people are different because of that change in you. This is how transformation works. It ripples outward, touching lives we never even considered." As the demonstration concluded, Pope Leo XIV addressed the gathered crowd, speaking of bridges between traditions, of strength through humility, and of finding unexpected lessons in moments of conflict. His words seemed directed at everyone and no one, a gentle reminder of universal truths that Tyler had discovered through his own journey. When the Pope finished speaking, Tyler found himself approached by a young boy from his Chicago program, eyes wide with excitement. "Is it true," the boy asked, "that you challenged the Swiss guards and they took you down in like 2 seconds?" Tyler laughed. "It's true. Probably the best thing that ever happened to me, though I definitely didn't think so at the time." "And now you're friends with them?" "Now we're friends," Tyler confirmed, ruffling the boy's hair, "because sometimes the people who show you your weaknesses become the ones who help you find your true strength." As the sun began to set over St. Peter's Basilica, casting long shadows across the ancient square, Tyler, the demolisher, Martinez, stood not as a conqueror, but as a man humbled and remade by an unexpected defeat. In losing that day, he had gained something far more valuable than viral fame or social media glory. He had found a purpose beyond himself, a strength beyond physicality, and a victory more meaningful than any championship belt. The Swiss guards stood at their posts as they had for centuries, guardians of tradition in a rapidly changing world. And Tyler stood among them, no longer an adversary, but an ally. His own journey a testament to the power of respect, humility, and the courage to begin again.